Hi guys, MrSpaceman reporting for duty. Towards the end of FM's life cycle, we're all patiently waiting for the release of the next game. Some choose to continue their current saves until the day the new game releases, some take a month-long break to recharge their Football Manager batteries, and some look for a new short save as a final hurrah to the game. So, my final hurrah was a challenge to myself to build a team that has recently relegated itself into Bundesliga 2. That's Schalke. Schalke got relegated last season with only 16 points in 34 games. Well, if you don't know German football, or football at all, that's bad. I mean, not as bad as Derby County, but still very low. Schalke is a massive club in German folklore, a strongly supported side based in Gelsenkirchen. The Die Nappen were the runners-up in the Bundesliga as recently as the 2017-2018 season with their youngest ever head coach in their history, Domenico Tedesco. This guy is one of my favorite managers in the recent history of Spartak Moscow, as he was an amazing coach with a great tactical mindset and a very emotional approach to football, for which he was criticized in Russia by the so-called experts. Can't call them experts, but they pretend, so they're experts, I guess? I will do a video about him one day, but that's a different topic, so let's get back to Schalke. Schalke is a team that can be described as the best of the rest. Never truly competing for trophies, but you can't imagine a top 6 without them. Until now, that is. You can kind of predict what caused everything to break down in the recent years, and that's, say it with me, financial mismanagement. And that's from the stadium. Hooray! Medals for everyone! This is despite the fact that Forbes reported that in 2019 Schalke was the 14th most valuable club in the world, valued at $683 million. And yet, in 2021, according to NTV, the club had liabilities of 197 million euros after their 2019 financial year. Things got so bad that the club had to impose a salary cap of 2.5 million in annual salaries to lower their wage bill. So, of course, that meant that a fire sale had to occur.
Time for a fire sale!
Ozan Kabak, Suat Serdar, and Winston McKennie were all loaned out with buyout clauses. And they're like, what, their 3 best players? What is going on? And to make matters worse, they also had to shift their, how to say this, their, less good players? Yeah, that were signed for large sums and weren't stupid wages. Seriously, who gave them these wages? So obviously, a relegation was pretty much a certainty. After Tedesco was sacked and 4 different managers later, relegation was confirmed on April 20, 2021 after a loss to Arminia Bielefeld. Well, and this is where Schalke's story ends and ours begins. After a disappointing season that finished with relegation, the board spent all their money acquiring a time machine and going back in time to August 17, 2020 to make a surprising managerial announcement. A man who isn't known for a particular style, without a particular set of skills, and no interesting characteristics whatsoever. They have decided to hire a totally unknown man who somehow collected 27 caps and scored 9 goals for England, and yet no one has heard of him or seen him play. And his name is... John C. No, unfortunately not. Let me introduce you to Bob Bobson, the most generic manager of all time. Well, okay, actually not that generic. I basically didn't change anything from what FM gave to me when I clicked create a profile, so that's how generic Bob Bobson was made, okay? Basically, the owners thought, hey, it worked for AFC Richmond, so why not for them? Just don't tell them what happens in the show, and please don't spoil it in the comments either. Thank you very much. Anyways, the challenge that Bob was set is to basically do much better than Schalke did in real life, and he'll be given 5 seasons to turn the club around and make them a European powerhouse once again. But first, let's introduce you to the squad he inherited in Season 1. Schalke starts the season with few decent players, and according to the media, they're expected to finish 15th. And when you look at the squad in more detail, you can kind of see why. The squad is full of mediocre and grossly overpaid players. It is bizarre that for a team of their size, there are 9 players on 50k and above with, and hear this, Bentaleb, Mascarell, Uth, and Nastasic earning over 70k. I'm sorry, but there's no way in hell that Bentaleb and Mascarell should be on these wages. Seriously, who are the agents? They're geniuses. The club is currently spending roughly 1 million per week on wages, which for this squad seems insane. Remember, they got relegated last year. So Bob, of course, set off to fix that, cull the greatly overpriced, and bring the cheaper, younger players that want to compete. After the first transfer window, the club managed to offload a lot of deadwood. Players like Babaraman, Bentaleb, Omar Mascarell, Stambouli, and Schopf left the club for relatively small fees, but most importantly, together they saved the club a whopping £281,000 per week, which is literally more than a quarter of the wage budget. Bob, you're a genius. Haven't given himself room to maneuver. Remember, Bob was only given 88,000 per week in wages and 3 million starting budget. Bob spent 27.6 million on 9 players, and all of them joined on much smaller wages. A combination of experienced and youthful players brought the club a little bit of stability in the short term. Roman Zabnin became a key CDM/backup right back. You knew I had to bring this boy with me. Thales Magno formed a partnership with Alex Teixeira. Bela Kotchap became a starting 11 center back with bags of potential, and Danilo, Jonathan Goiano, Leonardo, and Vito, representing Partizan to glory of course, became frequent rotation players. The squad lined up with a Bob-specific 4-2-4 formation that was based on high press and control possession at all times, which led the club to some very strong performances in the first half of the season, with 9 wins, 1 draw, 3 losses by December. But Bobson wasn't fully satisfied with his squad. Players like Uth, Nastasic, and Ospika were the latest major players on crazy wages to leave the club, and they were replaced by players that would make Schalke fans proud. For example, Bob pulled the trigger on Eric Garcia, who didn't want to decide on his future until the end of the season, so since the club had some money to spend, it was quickly thrown at Manchester City in the form of 18 million with an extra 8.5 million in bonuses. Whilst it may be considered insane by most people, Bob had his eyes on the future, and he didn't want to wait an extra half a year. Ex-rotation players in the form of Tim Leopold, Konstantin Tukavin, Curtis Jones, and Marco Moya were brought to the club for literally peanuts, and the squad reached its, shall I say, final form as they rocked into second place in the Bundesliga with 65 points, edging slightly ahead of Borussia Mönchengladbach. The Bobson 4-2-4 produced wonders as we somehow ended up with Gonzalo Paciencia as the club's top scorer, and William with most assists. Okay. Goals were shared between a lot of our players, and whilst Thales Magno greatly underwhelmed, all the other signings hit the ground running. In terms of finances, after 2 crazy transfer windows, the club now only spends 809,000 per week. To summarize the season, the signing of the year was definitely Eric Garcia, as signing a player of his quality and potential for only 18 million should be considered the biggest bargain of all times, and he'll be closely followed by Gonzalo Paciencia, as even though in the second half of the season he stopped playing as much, he scored 12 goals in 23 appearances for the club, which is massive. As I've mentioned, we finished second in the league even though we were asked to finish in the top half? With this starting squad? Really? And in the DFB Pokal, can we not talk about this, please? No. Do I really have to? We got knocked out in the game against Hannover 96, okay? There you go, look at it. But, you know, I have an excuse. What the hell is this game? We finished the game with 8 men, literally everyone trying to get sent off, whilst Hannover finished with 10 and we had 2 goals disallowed. Granted, the squad was a little rotated, but come on, this was a very disappointing result, and I've let the team know it. Anyways, let's quickly move on so you don't remember me as a shit manager. It's notable that Magno isn't in the best 11 even though he played pretty much most of the games. Harrod disappointed, and Vito is only there because Jones came in too late. Apparently the fans thought that our player of the year was Suat Serdar, and whilst I'd agree that he had a good season, I'd have given it to Furman, as literally this guy was like, nah mate, I'm not conceding today, as he kept 11 clean sheets for the club. Impressive player and really a big reason why we finished second. Bob had an amazing first season as manager. Not only did he not get sacked after an election, which sometimes a full manager is already a win in itself, the Bundesliga players thought that he was good enough to award him the German Players Manager of the Year. In just one season, he also single-handedly solved Schalke's financial problems through lowering the wages to such a level that the club actually had the best wages to turnover ratio in the whole of Bundesliga. That's pretty cool, eh? Right, that's season 1 done. Now, time to jump into season 2. And spoiler alert, there is going to be a lot more transfers and other shenanigans. Right, who turned on the hacks? How did Bob convince Mukoko to sign? And what the hell is another Spartak player doing at the club? Let's take this one step at a time. Schalke finally won a trophy under Bobson, and whilst to you it may seem like only a Super Cup, it was against Bayern, so I would say that's a good result. In the Bundesliga, the club finished 3rd, and whilst that may seem like a downgrade, they actually got 8 more points than last year. I'd definitely call that progress. This time the club made it further into the DFB Pokal, but were stopped by their rivals Dortmund after a penalty shootout, which served as a small revenge against Schalke for stealing Mukoko for 2.3 million? Come on, that's some bad transfer business from Dortmund. But of course, you know, let's be serious, this is a stupid function of his youth pre-contract when the game starts. Like, Borussia literally can't offer him a contract before other clubs, which is so stupid, but it worked out for Schalke. First season back in the Champions League was also a relative success, as the club actually made it into the semi-final, and were only stopped by Barcelona, which, Funny story, the performances in the second leg caused the players to refund the traveling fans as Schalke was thoroughly destroyed by Barcelona. I have literally never seen this message before, so it's interesting to see. And honestly, I'm really glad they did that on their own volition, because it saved me from going player to player and finding them all, because they really deserved it. The club spent 85 million in 2 transfer windows while selling 13.5 million worth of players and continuing to offload high-wage players like Mustafi, Harrod and Rudy. But the biggest signing was not the signing of Pino or Moukoko even, but in fact it was the magical ability to keep McKennie at the club instead of letting him go to Juventus. It was actually quite easy. They just offered 50 million, which was his transfer release clause, and I said no, and that's it. They didn't try again. The club continued to use the 4-2-4 Bobson tactic, which let Pino and Moukoko finish with 24 goals each, and even Magno finally learning to score with 15 goals. There's no point covering Moukoko, as you all know how good he is, but Yeremy Pino was an actual GOAT. An amazing player with great dribbling, pace and finishing, but his best attributes are his wages and how much Villarreal thought he cost. We robbed them. What is this? This is pennies. He even scored all 6 goals in one game as Schalke destroyed Stuttgart in the league. 6 goals. What an absolute legend. Other honorable mentions are Rui Silva, who continued amazing work from Furman, and Samuel Gigot, who was the rock at the heart of the defense along with Eric Garcia. And he only cost 4.1 million as well, so Bobson knows exactly what he's doing. Finally, wonder kids like Yusuf Demir, Tonali and Arsene Zakharyan were also brought in the transfer window for the future, and still, somehow, the club remained the best in the Bundesliga for wages to turnover ratio. What does this mean for season 3? Maybe some more exciting transfers next year and even better performances? Who knows? Let's find out. Excuse me, Schalke did what? What is this? What is that? Damn, Bobson is a genius. Shall we call him Sir Bobson? Schalke lifted the Bundesliga trophy in the home stadium of their biggest rivals Borussia Dortmund after an incredible season in which they topped the group with 90 points with 87 goals scored and only 23 goals conceded. After 2 disappointing losses in the first 3 games of the season, the club literally did not lose another game in the league as they were simply unstoppable. What about the Champions League, you may ask? Well, after coming in close second after Real Madrid in the group, the Dying Nappen got their revenge on Barcelona after an insane 7-6 aggregate result. By the way, they lost 6-4 in the away leg and it was a very, very, very stressful game. Easy results against Lazio led Bobson and co to the final against Manchester City, which they won 3-2. To add salt to the wounds of the poor City fans, not only did City score first, giving them false hope, but also the trophy was lifted in front of them by their ex-player Eric Garcia, the captain. The amazing season was possible due to a tactical reshuffle by Bobson, which replaced the 4-2-4 of the early Schalke days into this monstrosity. Nuno Mendes, new signing by the way, as you can see, was given the license to roam as Yeremy Pino and Pedro Porro, who was brought in from City on loan, dominated the right flank. The midfield trio of Tonali, McKennie and another new signing, Camavinga, dominated the midfield, and up front, of course, the duo of Moukoko and what? Arsene Zakharyan? How did that happen? This kid ended up as Schalke's top scorer in the league with 1 goal more than Moukoko. I told you, I made a video about him, go watch it. He is actually amazing and he's got bags of potential. Zakharyan fought for a starting place with Thales Magno, who became more of an impact player off the bench, and what a massive impact he had in the Champions League final, eh? The club signed a lot of youth to ensure that it had a successful future even after Bobson left, as players like Mendes, Camavinga, Brandon Williams and Bartolomeus Dragovski joined the club for not particularly massive fees. And the best part, they were mostly covered by significant sales for profit of Gustavo Asencao, Danilo, William and Alex Teixeira, all sold for much more than were brought in over Bob's tenure. But the best part of all this was that despite the club making huge signings over 3 years, bringing in possibly the best youth available in Football Manager, the club now only spends an extra, get this, 200,000 per week in wage budget. Now, this is a perfect lesson to all football club owners. This is what happens when you use your money wisely. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little rebuild save. If you are impressed by how good Bob Bobson is at saves coming at managing his team and club's finances, I hope you'll consider hitting the like button and maybe even the subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. I'll be doing more saves like this over the course of FM22, so feel free to suggest me the teams you would like to see most in the comments. Also, if I've missed something or if you want me to spend more time discussing a certain aspect of the rebuild, also pop it down below as I read all your comments and respond to all of them. I hope you have a fantastic day, get ready for Football Manager 22, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Spaceman out.